Good morning, Colts Nation. Welcome back to another episode of the No Horsing Around podcast, brought to you exclusively by the Lounge Room Network. As always, we're just two dudes talking Colts. We're your hosts, Steven and Zach. And on today's edition, Zach, we have a left tackle, man. We have a left tackle. You predicted it the last two pods in a row. So we get to actually talk about it. I'm excited. I'm excited to have some. We got a little bit of hot stove topic going on. We're going to hit on that. We got another player coming in for a visit. I'm going to let Zach talk about that too. And then the schedule's dropping in a few days. I think it's 2 days. So we're going to kind of give you guys, we're going to step out on a limb. And we're going to maybe even try to predict that the Colts might get a primetime game this year outside of a Thursday night. We'll see. So, as always, you can find us in all the areas you listen to your pods. Me and Zach both ask you, please rate, review, subscribe, share, follow, whatever it is that you do on whatever platform. Go do it. So, man, we don't hesitate. We jump right in. Fisher's here. What are your thoughts, man? You're the one who predicted it. You've been predicting it for almost a week now.
Yeah, you're right, Steven. So I guess I'm going to toot my own horn here a little bit. But
toot, man.
Exactly. I feel like that, there was just too many signs that led to us, potentially signing Eric Fisher before we found out news broke this morning that we actually did sign Eric Fisher. Looks like 1 year, $9.4 million. We don't know specifics. We don't know guarantees, all that good stuff. I'm sure that'll come out in the next few days. But all in all, it solves a huge problem, right, Steven? We needed a left tackle. You didn't want to go in week one penciled in for the rest of the year and having Sam Tevy as your normal everyday left tackle. I think anybody, in any football community, we have a lot of disagreements, but I don't think anybody really disagreed with that point of view. Sam Tevy just wasn't the right guy and the right fit. So I'm excited that we did sign Eric Fisher. A little bit worried about the injury, just because it's an Achilles injury. And that's pretty important to a left tackle to have a good Achilles. But I dug a little bit on Fisher. These last two seasons, it's kind of been a little bit of a misnomer. He has not been healthy the last two seasons, but before that, he was very reliable. He actually started almost every single game that he played, and he plays through injuries. From what I can tell and digging deep into that, he's actually been a guy that actually is not afraid to go out there with injuries. Obviously, with an Achilles injury, you can't play with that. Nobody in the world can go out there and do that. But all in all, it's a good signing. I feel like you're probably going to miss out on him those first 4, 5, 6 weeks. We don't know that. I think as it progresses, we'll figure out how his rehab's going. You got to feel like the Colts feel pretty good about this team because you mentioned a great point. He was going to fail that physical when he came in last week, so we didn't know what that looked like. But that was more of a barometer just to see where he was at in his rehab process, I feel like. And, 3 days later, we signed him. So you got to feel like that medical checked out, the way they wanted it to check out. So for me, this was the off-season topic. We had a really, really solid draft with the caveat is if we can get a left tackle, we're in good position to have a really good run this year, man. And I know I got a little bit on a tangent there. I'll let you kind of put your 2 cents. I know you're excited about having that left tackle void filled out as well. Whether it was going to be Charles Leno, Eric Fisher, that was kind of the question. Who were we going to go with? What do you think, man?
It's kind of funny when you talk about it too. Does it not feel, man, like there's just these dots that you can connect on a lot of these signings? For those who have listened to me long enough, when I first started the podcast, I kind of beat the drum for Carson Wentz. The connection was there. You kind of felt like it was going to eventually happen. When we got to this offseason, once Fisher got cut, everyone pointed to the Colts. It felt like it was something that was going to happen eventually. That's the way it was going. That's the way it was trending. Obviously, the Achilles was a big concern. I'm 100% with you. I don't see him touching the field for at least the first 4 games. I just don't. I think you're going to have Tevy. I Better Tevy than Davenport. I'll take Holden. I'm okay with that too. Just kind of a mixture. I think everyone's going to be a little bit better, when you stick them next to Big Q. But it's the signing that needed to happen. So for people who may not know, obviously, if you listen to this pod, you're a big time Colts fan. Hopefully, you know who he is. Just a little clarification: Fisher was the number 1 overall pick in 2013. And like Zach said, dude did not miss games until a little bit recently. I looked up some fun facts, and it's like I think in his entire career, according to Pro Football Focus or Pro Football Database, I think he had 15 holding penalties his entire career so far. So he is steady, he is strong. You saw what Kansas City looked like in the Super Bowl without him. I think it's a great pickup. And a fun fact is that he is actually, I believe, he's 2 years younger than Costanzo was. So he's a younger version too. You're getting him on a discount this year. I don't know with next year. Obviously, that was something Zach talked about that we didn't want to have to worry about, but we're probably going to have to. I don't know how that looks, but there's so many just fun little connections. I think one of the coolest things I saw was on Twitter today. Someone, I think it was Lucas Robbins. He's a guy I tweet back and forth with, and he mentioned, and Zach, I don't even know if you know this, did you know that Fisher and Adangbo tore their Achilles on the same day?
I saw that tweet when you tweeted it out, and I thought,
was that not crazy?
That's what a crazy parallel, as far as how that happened and everything.
It's kind of like it's a race back to the field is kind of what they said. It's like, who's going to get there first? I love it. Obviously Leno's a little younger. Leno's also not hurt, but I think the ceiling for Fisher is much higher. There's a reason why he was the number 1 overall pick. And I said it last time that I don't think he's cut from Kansas City if he doesn't blow his Achilles out. I think he's still there. Because it wasn't like they had a better option. They had to go trade picks and find the better option. So, I love it. I was so excited. It got jumbled in my news feed when it first broke, and so I didn't see it. My buddy Adam over at Bama Lounge, he was like, "Hey, someone sent you something inside one of the chats." And I was like, "Man, they're just busting balls." So I don't know what it was going to say. And I opened up, it says, Stephen Burton, 86, Fisher to Indy. And I'm like, okay, is it real? Or are they just trying to be funny? And so I popped out and I looked, and it was real, $9.4 million worth of real. So, we like it. We, like Zach said, he predicted it. He predicted it basically on his first show here too, was that coming out of the draft, it felt like Ballard had this in his back pocket. And obviously, for those who are trying to say, oh, he's not healthy, it's a bad signing, we've said it, and Zach, you've said it too, that if he signed, they're okay with the medicals.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. They don't do this signing, and, they signed him. He went out of town for 2 days, and then they had the weekend to kind of think this over, talk it through. You got to feel like that they were in some sort of contact with Leno. And at the end of the day, I think that they just thought that Fisher was a better player. I think that's what it really came down to when it was, all the dust settles and they're both healthy. I think that they felt like they got the better football player. I think the only thing, Stephen, that I don't love about it, you did a great job of mentioning this earlier, it was only a 1-year deal. Yeah. However, in this situation, I don't know if the Colts would want to go further than 1 year with a guy that you just don't know. That guy could come back and bounce back and have an amazing, normal, typical left tackle year, or he could come back this year and this could be really bad for him. It could be a type of an injury that hinders him moving forward. Yeah. So, but you got to feel like they're in a position. You mentioned a great point too, that he's 2 years younger than Costanzo. They can always go back as this season progresses and says, hey, man, we're good. You're good. You wanted to get paid. This worked out great for us. And we'll go ahead and sign you to a multi-year deal. We'll go ahead and extend you before, shortly after the season, before free agency even gets going. I still think we have a chance to do that.
I would love that.
All in all, it's a really good signing, and it was a must. If we wanted to be in any consideration to play for any type of thing in the playoffs, possibly, go up against the Chiefs and, in the AFC Championship.
Oh, yeah.
I believe the Chiefs are going to go back again. They just keep getting better somehow, some way. I don't know if the Chiefs have a salary cap, honestly, Steven. I think
I don't know how they do it, man.
They just
Salary cap is a fictional thing.
And loading up. But yeah, I mean, all in all, we had to have, this was paramount. I mean, this was everything. We've built a team to run the football, play really, really good defense, take the ball away from other teams, and to make things on our quarterback where he doesn't have to. One thing that stuck out to me was Frank Reich after they talked about signing Carson Wentz. We don't need him to be extra special. We just need him to be Carson Wentz and make the right play. That's it. Mm-hmm. That's all Reich wants from him. He doesn't want this guy to go out there and, be running around with it, almost falling on the ground and sidearm the ball, into the end zone like Patrick Mahomes. He just wants him to make the right football play and not turn the football over. And at the end of the game, you've got a stable, no pun intended, you've got a stable of running backs. I mean, you can just keep hitting people, with Marlon Mack, on deck, and then you've got Himes coming out of the backfield. You've got Jonathan Taylor, who's the bell cow and obviously the future of the NFL from the running back position. I mean, we're in a really good spot. This is an exciting. I hope people can tell how excited I am. This is a big deal, for Colts fans, and we needed this. This was a big deal, and I'm glad that Chris Ballard, kind of brought this thing home and tied a bow on this offseason. And heck, you never know. He may not be done. He's got a couple other guys that's been coming into town as well.
Well, and I think we all think too. And it's so important to realize. It seems like it was the last paramount piece that you had to do. You needed a new quarterback. You went and got a dynamic quarterback, and like you said, I've been saying it. You don't need 2017 Carson Wentz. I'll take 2019, where he carried the team over the last month and got them in the playoffs. And a lot of people bag on that. Him not playing in that game was not his fault. It was Jadeveon Clowney going suicidal on the back of his head on an illegal hit. You can't help that. So you don't need him to be this 2017 version. I'll take 2019 and I'm good. And then you get this stalwart. You get this left tackle who is uber talented when healthy. There's the caveat there, when healthy, and you need him to be healthy. He's going to take some time to get back there. But man, like I'm listening, I listen a lot to Pro Football Focus, and I know that's like blasphemy sometimes, because sometimes like Chris Sims does really stupid stuff, like saying Kellen Mond is the third best quarterback in the draft. But they had a whole segment today. I was listening to it on my way to work, and they feel like this is like you said, this is the bow on the top of the present. This is the move that needed to be made. And a lot of people are now talking, saying all the pieces are in place. The most pressure now is on Wentz, and because the Colts are ready made. Everyone goes back to that Buffalo game and says, hey, we gave Buffalo every bit that you could handle. And it truthfully, until later in the season, later in the playoffs, was probably hands down the best playoff game until maybe the Super Bowl. So, I mean, now you plug in this dynamic younger quarterback. You plug in a new left tackle to take over for Costanzo. You plug in you plug in your young edge rusher. You plug in all this stuff. I mean, and so, yeah, you hear the excitement in Zach's voice. You hear the excitement in our voice. There's also excitement, too, because it's new information that we can actually talk about now, too, because we've been waiting. You guys have heard us say we were really hoping this was going to break last time. I'm excited it broke today as with the recording of this pod. But with all this talent, this leads kind of to the next thing, Zach, that we've got. I'm going to let him take the lead, because honest to God, I don't know enough about him. We got another player who's coming in who I think did he come in today as of the recording, or did he?
The Woods guy, Woods from Dallas, he came in for a visit. They cut him. It was just kind of a late cut, I guess, to save a little bit on the salary cap. It's just really truly a depth signing if they end up signing them. Fowler's always preaching in the trenches. I think he's just a nice guy to have behind, Grover Stewart, in case, in a rotational situation, and also a guy, if there ever were an injury, you could throw him in there. He's a veteran. You don't have to worry about what he can do. You've got plenty of film. And a big deal with him, and I think the attraction for Chris Ballard is he comes from the same exact defense. That Rod Marinelli, that normal zone defense. Eberflus came from Dallas. It's just a seamless thing. So it all – if one thing about Ballard, you can always tell in his tenure, he always goes back to what he knows and his roots. He always so comfortable going back to what he knows because he doesn't have to guess. It takes the probability of guessing out, and it eliminates, well, what type of guy is this? It eliminates all of those question marks because he knows what type of guy that is. Or if he's going to, a Frank Reich and saying, I need you to know a guy who he trusts with everything. I mean, those guys are tied hip to hip. I don't know if there's a better head coach general manager relationship in the NFL, honestly. I mean, he gives Frank Reich plenty of say-so. Oh, yeah. And he always tends to lean back in a direction, Stephen, of things that he knows. And it really makes for a good process when he goes out there and signs these players because he doesn't have to guess how that's going to translate to the Colts. He already knows. He has intel. He has inside information, and that's why he leans so much on these types of things. So for me, it's not flashy. It's not going to, make people go crazy. But at the end of the season, if Grover Stewart had to miss a game or, you're just in one of those dogfights where you're just rushing that quarterback all game long and he just needs a blow. And you got a guy who's a veteran can come in there. He's the type of guy that ever so often, a few times this season can make one of those crazy plays, bat a ball down, get a sack, stuff a guy in the backfield. So, not super flashy, but we felt like it was at least worth mentioning, on this podcast. It's news. It's something that's current. It's something that's ongoing. I haven't heard one way or the other if they're going to sign them. You want to think that a guy like that, they're not in any hurry to sign him. And Chris Ballard's not going to get in a hurry anyways. That's just not his but he's a guy that they can gauge, say, hey, this is what we got for you. If you want to go out and test the market, come back to us, let us know. And Ballard's really frugal and really smart. I mean, a lot of times he'll go into a player and he'll say, hey, we got a week. We offer you this deal. Let us know in a week. If you can't let us know, then it's okay. Move on. I'm glad we got a chance to at least just give him a little bit of, a piece of this podcast because he could be a future Colt, maybe not, but it would just be a solid depth signing.
Yeah, I mean, and I think what you said too, it's so important. Like when we talk about Ballard leaning back into what he knows, man, when you look at his drafting and you look at the players he signs, man, Ballard knows D-line. He knows, for the most part, D-line, linebackers. He seems to struggle slightly with wide receivers. That's a tough one for him. He's had some swings and misses on those. We'll see what happens with Paris Campbell. But I think it's important, too, what you said, too, is that if they brought him in and he passed, they probably was like, this is what we're going to offer you. And that's not – the funniest thing with Ballard is I feel like he treats the star player exactly the same as the practice squad player. Because if you think about it, he's doing it with this guy who's going to be a rotational piece. Y'all, he did the same thing with T.Y. Hilton. He did the same thing with Xavier Rhodes. That's wide receiver. As of the start of the year, that's wide receiver 1 and cornerback 1. And he said, this is what we're paying you. You can go find it. And if you listen to Ballard talk too, he does say he's okay when he says, this is what I'm going to give you. Can you go get more? And they go get more. He wants players to get paid. He wants them to stay home. But if T.Y. could have got, if T.Y. really wanted to, he would have been a Baltimore Raven. Because, you heard him talk about the fact that it was so much money. He just did, selfishly speaking, he probably didn't want to catch passes from Lamar Jackson because Lamar Jackson can't really throw the ball. It's just
very good point. And,
personal opinion.
Not to get off on a tangent, but, like the smartest receivers in the NFL, I think the really, really good ones all realize, if I chase the money, that's one thing. But if I go chase the money and I don't have a guy who can actually throw me the football, well, this is just going to just turn around and blow up in my face. So I think you're right.
Big one. Allen Robinson. Boom.
Yeah. I mean, what a tragedy. A really, really unbelievable, uber talented wide receiver who just gets.
Did you know in our live stream, Brandon from Titletown Lounge, Brandon and Rhino, they're part of the Lounge Room Network too. And they mentioned he turned down, he took the job, he took the spot with the Bears for $500,000 more than the Packers. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I hope that bought him like a nice extra like couch in his apartment. I feel so bad for him, man. But so I mean, yeah, we wanted to mention that. So I mean, with all this stuff, we've got the schedule releases in 2 days. It's Wednesday night, big night. You know ESPN is going to make a huge deal of it. It's going to be it's going to be like the draft 2.0 with this. And all it is the schedule release. But we do know who the Colts are playing. We just don't know when. And so the fun thing that we thought we would kind of do is kind of look through their schedule a little bit and maybe try to predict if the Colts might actually get a primetime game outside of Thursday Night Football this year. I mean, you've got your fingers crossed. I mean, so what do you think? We've got the 8 games, or 6 games with the divisional opponents. I feel pretty confident in saying one of the games against the Titans will be on Thursday night. It just always seems to be that way. They always seem to play that Thursday night game against the Titans. But the interesting part comes in with the rest of the schedule and seeing, do we think they're actually going to give the Colts some primetime games this year? What do you think, man?
So here's my first thought in division. You made a great point. It feels like we always play Thursday night. I think one of two things is going to happen with the Jags this year. Trevor Lawrence, they're going to want to have him on primetime. We're either going to get him on a Thursday or going to get a Sunday night or a Monday night. I'm hoping we get an actual primetime game with the Jags. Looks like I don't know if you have a schedule in front of you. We're going to play Tampa this year, right, at home?
We're going to play. I know that one. I'm pulling up the schedule right now. We're going to play Tampa. That's the week 17. That's the new 17th game, week 18.
What about a Sunday night against Tampa? Like how cool would that be?
I would take that.
The only problem with that is that late in the season they always want to slate that last game for almost like a play-in game to the playoffs. So selfishly, I hope we don't have to play a play-in game. You know what I mean? To get into the playoffs. I don't think that's not with after signing Fisher today. I don't think that's going to be an issue. But I'm going to go. Just with just a rough prediction, I'll let you kind of take it over. You got the schedule in front of you. I'm going to say we're going to get 2 primetime games outside of our normal Thursday. NFL's kind of shit on us in the last, little bit here. And I think with the excitement of Wentz, I think with the excitement of just the type of team that we have and knowing that we've really not got any primetime shine, new storylines. It's always exciting for primetime games to have the new guy in town. Let's see what Wentz can do in primetime. I think we get 2 games, and I actually think one of those games will be a Trevor Lawrence game, just because they're going to want to have that guy on TV because he's going to push the ratings.
So I'd be remiss if I didn't say I'm sure they'd want to put Tim Tebow on primetime too, because you did. Yep. For those who don't know, Tim Tebow is expected to sign as a tight end for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Apparently, it's 2012 again. So I did get the schedule. I can see what you're saying. I can 100% see what you're saying in regards to them wanting to give Trevor Lawrence some love. It's the number 1 overall pick, considered the best prospect since Andrew Luck, which is funny too. So for recent Colts fans, this is not just a 1 or 2 year thing. We weren't getting primetime games with Luck either. Like, we weren't near the tail end. And some of that could have been they weren't sure if he was going to play with what was going on, but we weren't getting primetime games then. It's bad enough, you guys, that Irsay says stuff now. Like, Jim Irsay comes out and says stuff about the fact that we're not getting, not only do we not get primetime games, we don't get home primetime games. The last several, even on Thursday night, have been away. So I'm looking through the schedule right now, man. As I'm looking, I can. So there's the Jacksonville game that I could see. There's an interesting one for me too, man. Is that there's the LA Rams. I don't know why, but it piques my interest because of the whole Stafford thing.
Sure.
One thing I saw would it not be so cool to do one of the first weeks, maybe even week 1, primetime Rams, Colts, Stafford, Wentz. Two stud quarterbacks who are in new places, new homes, are expected to do well. Like the storyline seems to write itself a little bit, but I don't know. I mean, I like that one. I think now that I'm looking, I don't know. The at Tennessee, that's always a one. That was the Thursday night this past year. So I could see that maybe doing the one at Indy. And that last one, man, depending on how it does, that last week, man, it could get flexed. That the Tampa versus Indy, Brady versus Colts, depending on how the Colts look and how the Bucks look, they flex those games. That could end up being flexed into a primetime game. I'm going to hopefully say, if I'm including the Thursday night game, I'm going to hope to say 3. I'm going to say 2 other ones. Just come on. Like, if you're going to put some of these teams that they put in prime time, like if you're going to, don't get me wrong, Kyler Murray is a dynamic talent, but the Cardinals suck most of the time, and they get primetime games. You know, I can see the Rams and the Patriots still get primetime games, and they weren't very good last year. You know, the hard thing is it's what drives the ratings, what drives the needles, and a lot of people seem to think that Indy does not do that. I think it's wrong. I mean, you're up there. You've talked about kind of the passionate fan base that we have. We talked about that last time. So, I mean, God willing, we get something.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that the NFL should do a better job of, and it's just, I don't know if this is ever even feasible, honestly, because it, like you said, it ultimately comes down to ratings. But why not reward all of the playoff teams? You know, like all the teams the year before that made the playoffs. Why not have a system where we say, okay, first dibs on primetime games are going to be playoff teams from the year before. Like that's an incentive enough. You guys had a great year. Let's at least guarantee to show you one time on primetime. You know what I mean? And give you a little bit of shine. I just don't know as a fan, like how the Giants are on prime time all the time.
Didn't
like
the Jets have like 2 last year? Didn't the Jets show up twice?
Good. I mean, they're not good football teams. Like it'd be different. I understand Dallas when Dallas is winning. Dallas has, you know, a great fan base, whether you like it or not. It's prime time. It's a huge stadium. It's Jerry World, all this good stuff. That makes sense to me. But it's like you mentioned, the bad teams who are always, you know, I mean, hell, you even look at the Eagles last year. They got several primetime games, you know what I mean? And they weren't a great football team, not even the year before. So, I mean, let's just hope for our sake. I'm from the point where if we get one home primetime game plus the Thursday nighter, I'm not going to complain too much, just because that's a step in the right direction. And hopefully we can be really, really good this year, where the NFL is almost forced to put us on primetime.
Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting too, is that I feel like you were saying with the playoff teams, there's things the NFL could do. Like a thought I was having as you said that was, you know, we talked about they flex the final 3 weeks of the season. They can flex the games. Yep. Why not start that earlier? Why not maybe week 10, like the last 7 games of the year? That's when you can flex, because that's when you find out, hey, I thought the Panthers were going to be a good team, and they've got a Monday and a Sunday in the tail end of the year, and they've won 2 games. Maybe I can flex them out of that game. But it's too early to do it. So, I mean, there's always going to, you know, Rodgers and God, you know, if he's with the Packers, they'll get games. You know, they're one of the few small market teams. Like you said, Dallas always gets games, whether they're good or the bad, you know, and they're probably going to be better this year because Dak will be back. But it's gotten kind of to the point of lunacy that you're not getting these. And, you know, now Ballard has made it to where you can't ignore the team anymore. You can't ignore the talent that's there. I mean, how many all pros do we have last year, Zach? I'm going to put you on the spot. We have 3.
Quentin, Darius Leonard. Isn't that it? I don't think they gave anybody else one, did they?
Buckner wasn't Buckner second team?
Right. Yeah. Buckner. Yeah. Buckner.
So three all pros.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's pretty good.
I mean, you've got the thing too is that you talk about like with the schedule too. It's what drives the needle. Obviously, it's markets, but it's also personalities. So you've got Quentin Nelson, who in a position that is hard to have personality, has it in spades. I mean, if you guys don't go on YouTube, look up like Quentin Nelson's like clips of him being on like Barstool Sports. The dude is hilarious. Or Bussin' with the Boys with Taylor Lewan. He is hilarious. He's an amazing interview, you know? And then you've got like Kenny Moore, who does great. And, you know, I say shout out like he needs it, but Pat McAfee he's a huge help for Colts Nation because he's the biggest fan with the loudest platform, and he brings on all the players and the coaches so they get that rub too. So I mean, God willing, there's more. As an out of market fan, I want more because it's not the easiest thing in the world to be able to watch the games and to be able to talk about them intelligently. I have my ways of finding the games, and I do get to watch them. With the new TV deal, like I'm super pumped about that because where they're putting the games at now, I have. So as an out of market fan, which there's plenty. I mean, we have fans in Finland and in Canada and all over the place who want to watch the Colts. And those primetime games, like that's how you get to do it. That's how you build the fan base even more too. So you've got to be able to do it. If Irsay's saying stuff about it now, you just hope. I mean, I'm excited for it. We're going to really break it down next week after the schedule drops. We'll dive in, kind of look through it, have a better idea of what that looks like, and kind of see how it's kind of moving forward a little bit. So, okay, you guys. So we are moving now into the lovely social media sessions, which is, as always, powered by One Call Technology. One Call Technology is a family-owned telecommunication business that specializes in carrier services, business phone systems, everything you could think of that your business needs. You guys heard me say it last time. You know, telecommunications is obviously, it's a big thing right now. There's a lot of people who work remotely from home. You guys go on YouTube, you see us on Zoom. I use Zoom for work. It's just kind of part of it. And if you want to make sure that your internet speed is good, you call One Call. You go to the website, onecalltech.com. You can put that in. They'll look through it. Like you guys have heard me say, it costs you guys zero money, nothing. They just look through it, make sure that they can find you the best possible services in your area. It doesn't matter if you're in Tennessee like me, in Indiana like Zach. I mean, if you're in Canada like Vinny, they can do it. So reach out to them, onecalltech.com. Tell them No Horse and sent you, and maybe I'll give you a little bit of a better deal because I work there. So we want to go over as many questions. We have quite a queue, and we got a couple. Zach beat me to the punch today. He put out the ask before I ever could, and he got several bites for questions right off the bat. So let's I'm going to pull them up really quickly, and we'll kind of start going through them. So first we have Logan, which is at Dad Talks 5. Logan asks, with the addition of Eric Fisher, do we have the best offensive line in the NFL? If not, where is our holes? Zach, it was your ask that got this question, so I'm going to let you lead off with the answer.
Sure. I mean, it's a great question. Early on in the season, it's really hard to say if we have the best line in the NFL just based on the simple fact we don't know the health of Fisher. But I definitely think solid inside the top 5. I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, if you look at it, starting at the left side, you got the first pick in the NFL draft, right? You got the 6th pick in the NFL draft in Quentin Nelson. You got the 15th pick in Ryan Kelly of the first round. Glowinski, throw poor Glow in there, and he's like a 3rd round pick. And then you slide over, and Braden Smith's the 5th pick of the 2nd round.
Oh,
and
it will soon be the highest paid right tackle.
And will be the highest paid right tackle in NFL history. I mean, that is a formidable offensive line, man. I mean, you want to talk about great athletes and a blend of just great athletes with some road graders in there as well. You know, I mean, I think a lot of people will say, you know, Glowinski is kind of the weak spot. And I think everybody will agree. I mean, when you got 5 linemen like that, I mean, it's really easy for Glowinski to be the weak spot. You know, I mean, I mean, but just because is he an all pro like all of the rest? Absolutely not. But I think he's definitely serviceable. I think he's a solid player. I think he does tend to get beat against really fast, athletic defensive tackles a little bit. But all in all, I mean, you can't complain about that line at all. I mean, if really and truly, if Carson Wentz can't play behind that offensive line, then there is a problem. You know what I mean? Like then there is an actual issue going on, because he should have plenty of time to throw the football. And I mean, my God, how much would you like to have the opportunity to Stephen to run behind that offensive line? I mean,
and not only that, you know, you also it's another year in Strausser's system, you know, and like you said, you can't. Okay, it is, in my opinion, Fisher back fully healthy, it is probably the best offensive line in the NFL. Even with Tevy, maybe start the first 4 games, there's no reason it shouldn't be a top 10 O-line. And then part of it, when you're talking about with Wentz and you're talking about just the time he's going to have, let's not forget you've got, I like how you put it, you've got road graders. Like, they want to block. Like, they want to run the ball, which when you hear Big Q talk, it's so much more fun for O-linemen to run block, because he gets to go screaming down the sideline and take someone's head off. And you've got a stable of backs that you can just deploy. Give it to Taylor 25 times, mix in Marlon Mack 10, getting Naheem involved for about 10 touches. And on top of that, you're really actually going to be able to play action now. You know, you couldn't play action and maybe roll out. You couldn't do that with Rivers. I loved Rivers. I grew to love him last year. I didn't love him at the beginning. I didn't love the signing. It was hard, but I grew to really love him. And he played fantastic, but he had, you know, concrete feet. Wentz is mobile. You know, he's not mobile like Lamar Jackson. I kind of put him mobile like Aaron Rodgers. He can pick up, or even Andrew Luck, pick up 10 yards, pick up 15, pick up a first down. So with this O-line, I mean, to answer the question, as I kind of go off to the side with it, me and you both did with it. I mean, yeah, I mean, if Fisher, I mean, you heard Zach name the selections. I mean, Fisher at one point was he the highest paid left tackle at one point? Probably.
Yeah, probably when he re-signed, yes.
So he highest paid left tackle at one point. Ryan Kelly just recently stopped being the highest paid center. Big Q is going to be the highest paid left guard, and he's a future Hall of Famer. Braden Smith is going to be the highest paid right tackle. That's the only issue I can see. That's a lot of, now it's a good place to have it, but that's a lot of investment in one position group that you're gonna have to decide if you're gonna make it. So I mean, this is a great question, Logan. I mean, if I'm gonna nitpick, the only hole is the first 4 to 6 games or whatever Fisher's out, and it's having Tevy in that position. That's the only hole that you could see. But like I said, I'm confident in saying I think you slap him next to Quentin, it's still probably a top 10 line. So, okay. So next up, we have J.R. I'm going to try to pronounce it. Bergiven Marion. I'm so sorry, man. If you're listening to this, I was trying to make it right. He asked, and we had this question, and it's a good one. It's an interesting question now because we answered it, and I want to see if your answer is different now. So the question is, will the undrafted free agent streak finally end this season? And if not, who's the guy you would like to make the roster? It's a good question because me and you talked about this probably about 2 weeks ago. And we said we thought it was going to end. You know, that we didn't see a position to where you're going to get into and onto the roster. So now we have a better idea. We know who some of these undrafted free agents are. Does it change your mind?
Well, I mean, like you mentioned, as you become a better football team, Stephen, it becomes much more unlikely that an undrafted free agent can actually crack this team. I'm going to throw a dart, close my eyes and throw a dart out there. This running back that we took, Deion Jackson, If anybody kind of impedes this lineup and maybe comes in and takes over Jordan Wilkins' spot, he's
fast, man.
Wright loves having 4 running backs, and he likes rostering 4 running backs. And I just think that Wilkins is we know what Wilkins is, and you have a guy who's, like you mentioned, I think they said he had the second fastest 40 time of any running back in this year's draft. He's fast. He can catch the football. He's a playmaker, and he's younger. He's just younger. And unfortunately, running backs get no love in the NFL. I mean, unless you're a Christian McCaffrey or an Alvin Kamara, probably a Jonathan Taylor, to be honest with you, you're probably not going to get that second deal. I mean, it's just not going to happen. It's just too expendable of a position. And it's hard to believe in the passing era that we're in right now, Stephen, that you could be going into your 4th year and you're almost becoming an old running back. Like you're almost a guy who's like there's hardly no tread left on your tires. So I could see that possibly being a place where a guy can break through. Other than that, man, I think that, we signed some wide receivers, we signed some linebackers. I just think we're too good there. I don't think anybody's coming in and taking one of those spots. So that being said, the streak most likely will end, but if I had to pick one, I'm gonna go with him.
So that's a really good pick too. So it's Deion Jackson out of Duke. That's who you're talking about.
Yep.
And it's super interesting that you mentioned him, because there's been a lot of noise around him, because he seemed to be the hottest kind of commodity when it came to the undrafted free agency. I think his agent said he had 21 teams call. 21, 25.
Yeah.
I mean, 25 teams. And the Colts gave him a pretty decent signing bonus to come in to compete. He's got the skills a little bit. That's a good one. I do also like, and I can't remember his name, it escapes me, Vaughn. Vaughn is the last name. The receiver out of USC. I like him. He's former teammates with our boy Michael Pittman Jr. I think that probably, I'm not going to say Pittman carries weight with Ballard on what he does personnel-wise, but that helps an adjustment for any receiver coming out of college to have someone you're familiar with. And it doesn't hurt to have, more than likely by the end of the season, the number 1 wide receiver on the roster be one of your really good friends. So, if I'm guessing, it doesn't change my mind. I don't think someone breaks through. Like you said, the quality has risen to a point to where there's not spots. There's not holes. Shoot, I like Vaughn. I'll take Strawn over him to put on this practice squad or put somewhere. It's tough. It's tough. There's not this glaring hole. Last year you had the glaring hole where you needed the kicker. You signed Hot Rod. Hot Rod he's amazing. Respect the specs, right? So he filled every time we've had it, it's filled a need. And the needs we had this year were bigger than any undrafted free agent could fill. So I'm with you. I don't think it happens, man. So, okay. So next up, I like this one. So we kind of touched a little bit on this last time. So Mason Jackson's from Colts Nation Facebook group. He asked, do you think Jacob Eason could be a starter in the future? Or do you think he's just kind of, career backup? Is he going to be a career backup? And I'm going to add the caveat that it doesn't necessarily have to be in Indy.
Okay. Well, I think we on that last podcast, I kind of threw out a hot take and all that good stuff.
I loved it.
I think people realize the way I feel about it. So to answer that question, it's kind of a 2-parter. Yes, if he's going to play in the NFL, I believe he's a career backup. I do not believe that he is a starter in the NFL. I'm not sure he ever even honestly gets a chance unless there's some sort of an emergency situation. And there's just a mental aspect to football, to playing in the NFL, that I believe is just, I don't think fans, and even you and I, and we're more than just a novice fan, can really understand and grasp just how hard it is to play that position in the NFL and how mentally locked in you have to be. I mean, Frank Reich looks at that room. He's a career backup and probably looks at that backup differently than most coaches would, because he knows how important that backup is to the football team, and the way that whole operation, game plan and film study, how all of that is handled. He wants that backup to be a guy who's basically a second starter, and if there's a game in the fourth quarter and Carson Wentz goes down with a concussion or gets hurt, heaven forbid, he wants a guy who goes in there at the very least can run his offense mentally. It's so important to Frank Reich that you mentally can run the football, can kind of run his football team. And that's why I think Ehlinger has a really good shot at making this team. I really do. I mean, I think it's going to be a dogfight. Maybe it elevates Eason a little bit. Maybe it perks him up and makes him say, oh my gosh, man, I don't have the number 2 spot locked up. But you got to feel like, Steven, if he had the number 2 spot locked up and the Colts felt comfortable with that, they would have brought us, I call them soft bodies. You bring a guy in there who's just to compete,
like Bortles.
You just want a guy to come in there and just go through the motions, keep him honest, and then you don't want to rock the boat. Now, I think that Ehlinger was brought in there to win the second position. I think they've told him, if you go win it. Go take this job from Jacob Eason right now. I think Eason has one thing over Ehlinger is his arm. His arm strength is just phenomenal. I mean, the guy can throw the football, but we all know how that works. If you don't have the mental part of the game, but you have the arm, kind of i.e. Jacoby Brissett, it just doesn't translate into winning football. So, I think Eason would be a career backup, and I think Eason is going to get all the chances in the world just because of his pedigree and his ability to throw the football so well. That only goes so far, and I've been on record saying it, and we'll just see how it goes. But I'm not going to be surprised if he gets beat out for that second spot at all, man. I mean, we can go back and look at this, and maybe I look like a clown, but I think we're going to go back as training camp goes, and I think when we're going to have that podcast, I'm sure right before roster cuts, and we're going to say who's the team, and it's going to be a hard decision who makes that second spot, and I think Ehlinger is going to fight for it, man. I really do.
I mean, I think I agree. I think the suckiest part for Eason was, and I don't know if it's just Eason, it's the rookies from last year in general. It was the lack of the preseason, the lack of the training camp. I think all of Colts Nation would have loved to see what he looked like in a game, just to see. Now, it could have been like the Swag Kelly effect, and it could be like, oh my God, he's the greatest thing ever. He needs to start right away. I mean, but we didn't see him. So he was such an unknown all season. You had no clue. And, we talked about it last time when we talked about Ehlinger, was that to hear Ballard, go back and listen to Ballard talk about Eason when they drafted him. There was really nothing. I mean, let's even have a little fun with it and go back and look at with the next pick. They really didn't even touch on the Eason pick. They had a camera inside Ehlinger's home. Like that was a decent chunk of the video. And to hear Ballard talk about Ehlinger, the quote that stuck out to me, I mentioned it last time, was, I don't know what it is, but he has it. That's exactly what they said. And they haven't said that about Eason, which does make you wonder. I think you had the best line on the last episode, which is, he should have it wrapped up already, you would think. He's had a year in the playbook. He literally got to learn from Phillip Rivers all season. And Jacoby has his flaws. Let's not pretend that he doesn't. But Jacoby is an amazing leader. That's what you learned from him. And he was definitely, he got exposed. But he's what you were talking about when you were talking about that backup quarterback that Reich likes. Jacoby could come in and win you 3, 4, 5 games, maybe. If he's got to come in for a 5-game stretch, he'll go 3-2. He'll keep you afloat, and that's what Reich wants. And I think this year, maybe more important than any other, the backup position is huge because you have this misnomer out there about Carson Wentz's health. Can he stay healthy for a full season? Which he can. Me and you know, kind of like you said, it's kind of these Indianapolis Colts novices, slightly above just regular. We know, when you look at it, he's not missed a ton of games the last several years. He's really only missed that one big season when he blew his knee out. None of them have been these extraordinary amount of time. It's just really bad timing when he misses games. So I think I'm with you. I think Eason is probably a backup. I think his arm talent alone is going to keep him in the league going from team to team. He's gonna have that. God, you just hope he doesn't end up like Jeff George, just all that talent, all that arm, and he just can't put it together. So, I mean, I thought it was a fun little question because we've kind of debated it. We debated it last week, and then I look in the questions this week, and I'm like, oh man, we have we have an Eason question. So next up, let's see. Here we go. Bradley Farrell. If Wentz doesn't pan out, will we finally address the quarterback in next year's draft?
Oh man,
We're already talking about next year's draft.
I don't even want to think about it, to be honest with you. I mean, I guess you'd have to, right? I mean, the hardest part about football is, and I think the one thing that two people that stand out to me so much in the NFL, Steven, and it has nothing to do with the Colts, are the Ravens and the Patriots. The one thing that they do so good of a job at is when they've made a mistake, they move on from the guy. They don't hold on to him. They don't have this ego. Like, we all remember, Ryan Grigson trading for Trent Richardson and just holding on to this guy for, you couldn't let him go because the last thing that they want to do as a general manager, it's a prideful position, right? They want to be right. They want to say, hey, I was right. I knew what I stuck it out and I ended up being right. But yeah, I mean, if he has a bad year this year, I guess you're in a position where it looks more of like you're locked in for 2 years. Yeah. I think you're locked in for the full thing. I don't know what you do. I mean, you're in a really bad spot. You're not going to have a second round pick at the very least next year. If he has a bad year, you're probably not going to have a second round pick. Maybe not even a first round pick. So I don't know how you address that position next year. Yeah. And on top of that, not a good quarterback class next year. So, I mean, I don't know if it's even the year to do that. And then you've got a fan base that's mad because you possibly made a bad decision. And now do they really want you to trade, for another veteran free agent to bring them in and kind of start that Broncos carousel where you're just rehashing all of these old guys. So I think it's a 2-year project, to be honest with you. I guess I got a little off on a tangent, but I think it's a 2-year project. And I think Carson Wentz gets 2 years to prove himself here. I think that's it. That's all.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's 2 years. It's 2 years to prove that you can, at that point, if he does well this year, they may rework it then, And obviously, if you guys are watching on YouTube right now, I'm rocking the AO1 hat. I love me some Carson Wentz. That's his foundation. I have a hard time seeing him not do well, but I think let's take that hat off. Let's think about it, like you said. If he does, what is not panning out? Is not panning out not winning in a playoff game? Is panning out winning 6 games? Is not panning out tanking the season and winning 2 games? Like you said, the 2 quarterbacks already that they're talking about are Spencer Rattler out of Oklahoma and Sam Howell out of North Carolina. I don't really feel like that moves the needle a ton for me. The hardest part too is how do the rookies play this year? Because that was the thing last year. That was, the constant comparison was how Buckner did, which was fantastic, to how Herbert looked. Would you have rather had Herbert or Buckner? And that's what's going to happen this year. If Wentz doesn't pan out, they're going to look and go, well, you could have had Mac Jones. How's he look? You could have,
Deal.
Yeah. There's so many things. I don't see – it's kind of like the whole talk of are Frank and Ballard on the hot seat if they don't have a good season. I think that's all bullcrap too. I think they're so entrenched there. Ballard's getting an extension at some point. Irsay has already said it. He's getting one this offseason. He's widely viewed as the best GM. I think the best thing I saw on Twitter was it said like good GMs and it showed checkers. It said great GMs and it showed a chessboard and it showed Chris Ballard and it showed the 3D chessboard. So he's just making moves. So, I mean, I have a hard time seeing him not pan out. But if he doesn't, it's not really shaped up because it doesn't look like it's going to be a decent free agent class really either. It could get rough. It could get rough. But I think I was thinking about this today too, man. I think it's important as Colts fans to remember that we are less than 2 years removed from Andrew Luck's retirement. Like the team was built for him. Ballard has managed to still go to the playoffs. One out of 2 years. He didn't with Jacoby. He was fighting for a playoff spot right to the end. Ballard built the roster to a point where if you drop in a Carson Wentz, who knows, man? That could be kind of the fuse. But it's important to remember that, I feel like it feels like such a long time ago that we forget that it would have broken the back of a lot of other teams. It would have broken the back and they would be in complete rebuild mode. And Ballard didn't let that happen. So with social media sessions, you guys, like we always say, find us on Twitter. It's @NoHorsing. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see the banner at the bottom that says @NoHorsing. You'll see over here. If you're on YouTube too, you'll see my handle, which is @StephenBurton86. You'll see Zach's Colts Nation 365. Hit us up. Send questions. We don't have to do the ask. Don't feel like you have to wait for the ask. You can just send them. You can find it on Facebook too. I'm in all those groups too. I always ask for questions. If you put them in there, sometimes you just get bombarded with them on Facebook. It's kind of crazy sometimes. You guys have heard me say Facebook is a frightening place sometimes. But hit that, get involved. Like Zach said last time, as we get into the off season, this is really what's going to drive it. It's really what's going to push it is your guys' involvement. We want you guys to be involved all the time. We want you guys to really be involved in the off season. You guys can help drive what we talk about. They're questions, but they can drive, you heard the first question, which we kind of went on a tangent for like 10 minutes. It's almost like its own segment, when we get those kind of questions. So find us on Twitter, find us on Facebook. You guys know all the different areas to do it. So kind of wrapping up, we've got a left tackle. And just so y'all know too, I want to say this too. As soon as it happened, Zach texted me. It was like all exclamation points and smiley faces. So I always like to tell people that because I want people to understand, like me and Zach don't just talk 1 or 2 nights a week. We probably text every single day, even during this dead period a little bit. So, we've got our left tackle. We're moving forward. The schedule releases on Wednesday. I'm excited. I know you're really excited. Look, we're still gonna have the pod dropping on Friday. Zach's got a previous engagement. We love him for it. It's a much more important engagement than what we have here when we do it. As much as we love to do this, it's much more important. So we're still gonna drop it. I might bring a guest on. Y'all might have to deal with me just talking with you guys that day. We'll figure it out. But Zach, you got any parting words for him, man?
Man, I just want to take a quick second, like always, and just thank everybody, for the interactions. And like you mentioned earlier, Stephen, the Colts community is what drives us. It's what drives the podcast. It's the reason that we do it, because at the very end of the day, you and I, we are just Colts fans. That's all we are. 2 guys talking about Colts football. We're just passionate about it. And just being a part of this community means so much to both of us. And like you said, don't hesitate. We don't have to wait till you see that, hey, we're taking Twitter questions. You can ask us anytime, man. I mean, we're going to throw them in a queue, throw them in a log. We'll make sure at some point, don't feel like we're missing you. If we don't get you on the first one, we'll get you on the next round. But it's super important during this, off season up until, kind of OTAs to have the fans, kind of talking about what you want to talk about. We want you guys to drive the podcast and kind of give us some good feedback as far as that goes. And even if you disagree with us, I've said this every single podcast. If you don't like what we're saying, or if you just have another point of view, hey, man, change our minds. Let us know what you think. We'll mention it. I'll give you a shout out. I'll say, hey, man, I was wrong. This guy pointed this out, or this girl pointed this out. And we were very glad that we were able to, communicate with you guys in such a way. But other than that, man, I'm just really thankful to be a part of this, and I'm having a great time. And I look forward to doing this next Monday. And we should be able to have some cool things to talk about, and maybe do some roster, some schedule predictions or something cool like that.
Yeah. I mean, and like to piggyback off of what Zach said, y'all have heard me say it from the beginning of time a little bit with this. We started this podcast in December of last year. And the way that, you hear us talk about Colts Nation, you hear us talk about you guys, the way that everyone has embraced it too. Just, it blows my mind whenever I get on there that, I mean, like you said, we're just two dudes, talking Colts, literally, because it's something we enjoy. And I love the fact that you guys enjoy listening to us. And I love the fact that you guys get involved. So, and really quickly, if that's what you guys like, if you guys want that too, make sure you're hitting the follow, make sure you're hitting the subscribe, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, hit it wherever you listen. That way you don't miss when they come out, because they drop super early in the morning, so they're ready for your morning commute. So, I mean, that's all I got, man. I mean, I don't have anything else. The only thing I leave it the same thing every time. I love you. Zach loves you. We're out.